Hello, Internet. I'm Jake.
I'm Hannah. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Not stream.
Not a
I'm
stream?
used to streaming. Welcome to the video that is recorded previously.
It's a previously recorded video. This is Dave Rubin. We're feeling the juice today. We got the good stuff. We got it going. This is Republicans equal bad, Democrats equal good. And do you know why? Because he still says Democrats were the slavery team.
Oh, God. We're going to have to discuss this Southern strategy shit. This has been so thoroughly debunked.
It's okay.
As if political parties over 100 years ago are the same as the modern political party. Did you notice, by the way, that everything except for everything except for the last two, I believe.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, everything except for the last two are from like 1960s. 19 the biggest 1964 is the latest year that is cited, other than when they get to Obama and just say like Obama is bad.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and go down.
But the vast majority of these are from 18. We can just go through the list.
We'll go through.
1854.
They're really old. So Republicans bad, Democrats good. I can't believe I'm stating this, but Democrats aren't necessarily good and Republicans aren't necessarily bad. Human beings are complex. So here we go. Let's talk about this. Here's some, literally, he writes, here are some little known facts from PragerU about the Party of Love and Tolerance. Did he literally copy a PragerU video and just do the bullet points that the PragerU video had? Because that is not only is it bad writing, that's literally plagiarism, even if you cite them.
No, they probably went on the WhatsApp chat that all the people who suck Koch brother money dick are involved in. They're like,
please invite me to your WhatsApp chat, Dave.
Hey Dennis, can I use your misleading stats for my book that the Koch brothers are paying me to write? One Koch brother, the other one died.
All right, let's just. I don't think I really want to. I don't want to like debunk each and every bullet point. I think we'll just read a bunch of them and then we'll talk about why it's all wrong. Because I don't want to stay here for 4 hours. This is what I would do this on my stream. I wouldn't do this here. No. Back in 1850, this is the first bullet point. Back in 1854, 200 years ago, many Democrats supported slavery and wanted it to expand. When a number of outraged members disagreed, they broke away and alongside the member of the Whig Party formed the Republican Party, which actively opposed slavery. I said I wasn't going to debunk each and every one, but let's talk about this for just a second. There was a change in like the reason Democrats and Republicans sort of split was not just slavery. It was part of the issue for sure. Another part of the issue was how big the government should be, and Republicans wanted vast westward expansion and to help industry. It was a very capitalist, what is that? And then but some of them it's just very complicated. But some of them, a lot of these people were from the north. And they wanted to maintain the industrial revolution that was taking place and move it, or that was about to take place, and move it westward as part of their expansion because they didn't have slave labor to bolster their economics. They weren't necessarily good or bad. They were both bad. Just one of them, it wasn't legal for them to have slaves.
Sure, I would put it this way: the Democratic Party sort of grew out of the Jeffersonian ideal of like, we want the planter class to be the powerhouse in the United States. We want an agrarian society. Of course, Jefferson, had slaves, and the Democratic Party sort of grew out of that idea that we'll have plantations and agrarian society, and that will be the backbone of American civilization. Whereas Republicans at the time wanted to push for more like, okay, capitalists.
Both were hyper-capitalists. Don't get twisted.
Sure.
Both were incredible capitalists.
Oh, sure, but like in different ways. Industrialized, modern type capitalism versus
you can really think
agrarian
about it,
plantation.
You can really think about it that way. Exactly. One's farmers versus factories. That's pretty much the whole difference. So I'll just go on. I definitely won't interrupt myself. All right. In 1856, the first Republican presidential candidate, John C. Fremont, ran against a Democrat on just 9 manifesto points, 6 of which related to equality for black people. Related to equality for black people is a very strong word. I'm not going to get into it. Let's just say you can look it up. The following year, the U.S. Supreme Court approved the Dred Scott ruling, which declared that black Americans were not persons but property. Which party ran the Supreme Court? The Democrats. That's just whether or not it was constitutional to do so, and it just seems to be constitutional. The Supreme Court decides Constitution, not whether or not something is necessarily good or bad. That said, in the Constitution, you could definitely read that it is constitutional to not consider black people persons. Absolutely.
As it turns out, the Constitution was written with shit like the 3/5 compromise as a part of it. And again, it's wrong. I think that early Democrats were fucking shit people.
Totally.
But I think most people from the 1850s were shit people.
Well, yeah.
I'm not defending them at all.
Yeah,
Fuck them.
Me either. I'm just saying, like it just seems weird to highlight the Supreme Court being like, I'm in charge of that. Like, really, it was a total America was that, not just the Supreme Court. They surpassed themselves in the 1860s when the Ku Klux Klan was formed by Democrat Nathan Bedford Forrest. A year later, Democrats also created the Confederate flag. Now, riddle me this. Do you think a Ku Klux Klan member would support a Democrat?
Today? No.
Okay, now, if you had to pick, say you're a white supremacist, which party do you think most likely aligns with your beliefs?
The Republican Party currently.
Okay, even if they don't 100% line with your beliefs, the Republican Party does. So, why are we talking about 200 years ago? Shouldn't we be talking about the problems that white supremacists are identifying with aspects of the Republican platform today?
Probably because
Isn't that the issue?
The last good things the Republicans were a part of were the Civil Rights Act, and before that, the abolition of slavery.
Oh,
which was
interesting.
Over 100 years ago.
It was actually over 140 years ago. No, longer than that. 160, 100, lots of them. In 1865, Republican President Abraham Lincoln, who was trying to abolish slavery, was shot and killed by John Wilkes Booth. Yup, a Democrat. Okay, I can't interrupt myself. We gotta keep going. The Democratic Party then opposed a hat trick of legislation, legislative changes that would have liberated black people. The 13th Amendment, abolishment of slavery. The 13th Amendment is not the abolishment of slavery. The 13th Amendment is the abolition of slavery for free men. Very different. These are very different. I can read it to you. I have a copy on my desk. It literally says unless you're in prison, which is why we have prison chain gangs and stuff. And there's
a documentary on Netflix about it called The 13th. It's good.
And I mean, you could just like literally look it up. It was a way to. Turns out, ACAB still. Slave catchers were cops. Cops ended up being enforcers of the law, legislatively, the 13th Amendment. And guess what happened in the South? Mass incarceration of black people to maintain the status quo. Surprise! The 14th Amendment, citizenship, and the 15th Amendment, which gave black people the right to vote, all later passed thanks to Republican support. Cool. Several decades later, in 1912, I guess we have to move that far into the future, Democrat Woodrow Wilson was elected president the following year. He showed the first film to be screened in the White House, The Birth of a Nation, which was essentially KKK propaganda, which again, support the Republican Party modernly. By 1918, Wilson had banned any criticism of the government via the controversial Espionage Sedition Acts. We agree that that's bad. Jump forward to the 1964, again, like another 50 years, and the biggest congressional opposition to the civil rights came from the Democrats. This is not true. This is not true. Per capita, the Democrats had control of both houses or both chambers of Congress. They had the House and the Senate. Per capita isn't the same story. So just tossing that out. I mean, it is true, but it isn't true at the same time. Again, Democrats sucked. However, it is important to note that the Civil Rights Act was that was a John F. Kennedy special, who was a Democrat. I'm just tossing that out there. It literally came from JFK. He introduced the legislation And that's when it happened. And so there was part of the Democratic Party, we'll talk about it in a moment, that was very much in support of this. This party split had already been occurring for a bunch of problems. Most of it we talked about: industrialization, expansion, the decision on how to run the government from an economic standpoint. A lot of that, Republicans were very, very not collectivized in their ideas here. Another big part, which he doesn't bring up, was the New Deal that was by Roosevelt, who was a Democrat, which was, obviously prior to this, about 30 years prior to the Civil Rights Act. The New Deal, which of course, very progressive for our time, guaranteeing the right to work, guaranteeing medical and stuff like that, didn't work out. And that was part of the Republican switch as well. They did not support the New Deal because they found it to not be free market enough. They found it not to be capitalist enough. So there was a huge problem when the New Deal was introduced because it had moderate Democrat support, specifically Northern Democrats. And there was, Republicans don't like to help people. That's just the thing. And it happened around that time. They never helped people. And when you really look at it, but when you get to the point where American citizens are like, well, the New Deal is very socialist. It is socialist. When you get to that point, Republicans are like, no! Because they're very, very capitalist. And so this capitalism is a through line. And then they start, this is the part, again, that Dave Rubin skipped. That's when they start sort of, think of it like a tire running through the muck. You're starting to get like things deep entrenched into the treads of this Republican tire, and they keep rolling over racist counties and attaching a few Southerns, because the Southern people also like the economic policy of the Republicans. So they start adopting things, and guess what happens when your constituents are racist? You tend to start doing racist stuff to keep them around. So, continuing on, the following year, 1965, Lyndon B. Johnson, a Democrat who took over for JFK after he was assassinated, launched his War on Poverty, which was billed as correcting racially related poverty. This time, the out-of-wedlock birth rate was 25% among black people, according to the Office of Planning and Research. In 2015, it was 77%. Dr. Thomas Sowell described this phenomenon for saying, by the black family, which had survived centuries of slavery and discrimination, began rapidly disintegrating in the liberal welfare state that subsidized unwed pregnancy and changed welfare from an emergency rescue to a way of life. So this is not due to the war on poverty, although I would agree that the war on poverty was not very great. This is due to the war on drugs, which is Reagan. Anyway, so today Democrats oppose school choice, a decision that can trap mostly black children in failing schools, while politically correct policing often leaves black neighborhoods at the mercy of violent crime. Okay, this is not how school choice works. Democrats are often against charter schools, which are schools where you have to pay tuition for your kids to go to it. If you're poor, guess what you can't afford? Fucking your child's education. As shown by literally everybody that's poor. They're not trapped in failing schools. Part of the failing school problem has to do with the systemic racism issues that you didn't, outright deny that happened to occur from chattel slavery into the communities after slavery was abolished, in between the time of the emancipation of Americans, the 13th Amendment, and so on, and the Civil Rights Act, when you had redlining, you had gerrymandering, you have all these black communities. There's a reason the projects are a thing and a concept that you understand. These are racist institutions that cordoned off black people into certain areas, and then, of course, when the white community doesn't interact with the black community from an economic standpoint, you're going to have poor black individuals, you're going to have poor black families. If you have no familial wealth, it's hard to have upward mobility from an economic standpoint. If you can't afford education, it's hard to get a degree, which is hard to, again, increase your economic standpoint within the community. Now you see some success stories, and they'll say, like, look, LeBron James got out. It's like, yeah, he's good at basketball, but it takes HBCUs and grants and other stuff to slowly correct the behavior of America. It's just ridiculous that you would say something like this. We don't have to get into like property taxes and how all that affects schools. this is not a bad. The Democrats are not doing a bad thing in regards to schools. They may not be doing the best thing, but they're not doing the bad thing. They're doing kind of the status quo thing at worst almost every time. And then lastly, his last bullet point, and let's not forget, candidates Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama both opposed gay marriage during their first runs for the White House. It's not too hard to imagine the progressives of 2040 demanding that Obama presidential library be taken down due to his obvious homophobia, is it? Hey, guess what? They were wrong. And that's okay. Who still runs anti-gay legislation? The Republicans. Like, what?
Also, I don't understand
why
being
homophobic is bad, then why are you supporting the Republicans?
Right, and he's also saying, like, the progressives of 2040 criticizing Obama for that. The progressives of today criticize Obama for that.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, yeah, that's worthy of criticizing.
And also,
it's shitty that in 2008 he didn't have the backbone to, like, say, hey, you know, gay marriage, we should have equality. I agree, that's 100%. Shitty.
But
you don't have to wait till 2040, Dave. What are you fucking talking about?
And at the same time, I don't denigrate anybody for getting the right answer eventually. If you're behind the curve on something, cool, okay. I wish you were not. But guess what? I'm willing to leave people bandwidth for change, and that's okay. And I would rather you were a homophobe yesterday and not one today than being a homophobe 2 days in a row. That's really it. I will give you the benefit of the doubt when it comes to you changing your mind on something like that. I wish it was faster, but that's not how it is, and it wasn't politically expedient. We know how every one of those works. I mean, you say Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. I mean, John McCain ran against gay marriage both times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Mitt Romney ran against gay marriage. Donald Trump is not really a proponent of gay marriage. They just gave up because gay marriage was passed under Barack Obama. Like, Obergefell v. Hodges happened, and we were here for that. We celebrated it on this channel. Like, I don't understand these people. So is there anything that you want to hit on first before I go on another tirade?
Oh boy. Before
There's
you
so
get into your whole
much.
thing, I just want to say Dave's entire point is stupid.
Yes.
If it was 1870 and I was alive, if I wasn't in a mental institution for being caught wearing my wife's whalebone corset, then I would probably...
You had a wife in that time. Well,
yeah,
nice.
well, I had to wed at the old age of 17, so...
If your 4 children hadn't caught you in your whalebone corset.
You know. Anyway, if it was 1870, I'd probably be a Republican,
I guess,
right?
yeah.
But it's not 1870, and the Republican Party of today is not the Republican Party of 1870.
Yeah, I don't know
and
why.
Parties that were once progressive on certain issues doesn't make them good forever, right?
Right.
And parties that were once party to really bad shit, like the KKK, doesn't make them that today, right?
Do you think this is like...
It's over 100 years ago.
It's like watching X-Men and then Magneto teams up with the X-Men for like 2 episodes. You go, well, I guess he's a good guy now. I've always liked Magneto. True. He's always been a good guy. And then he does bad stuff. And you're like, wait a second. Like, he's still a good guy. It's totally fine. Like,
you need to judge your political positions of today based on today.
Really?
And when we're talking, I know it seems wild, but whenever Republicans bring this shit up, it's always the same thing. It's like, well, did you know the Democrats supported slavery? Yeah, I do know that. Did you know that it's been over 100 years since that, and the party's platforms are completely different?
Talk about
and also Nixon and Goldwater perpetrated on top of they're different.
Talk about all of
theories
those things. Talk about it. Talk about the Southern strategy. Get it out there because it's important for what I'm going to say.
Okay, so the Southern strategy was, depending on who you ask, it is certainly something that happened, but there is contention over whether it was top-down or bottom-up. Some people contend that people like Richard Nixon and Goldwater explicitly went forward trying to...
Barry Goldwater?
Yeah, trying to court racist Southern voters who were aggrieved by the Civil Rights Act and civil rights movements in general. They were trying to court those people and use those grievances to get them into the Republican Party, so they started proliferating racist ideology, or at the very least, dog whistles. There is, of course, you kind of touched on this earlier, the other theory that it was more bottom-up, that the Republican Party started to accrue racist constituents over time from the South.
It's both.
And that caused the Republican Party to slowly over time switch to switch their platform to appeal to those individuals. Right. It's probably both to some extent. I imagine
it's certainly both. As you see more constituents latch on to the Republican platform, they start having candidates that have stronger beliefs,
Sure.
and then it works. So I think the bottom probably fed into it, and then the top exacerbated it, and it went crazy. Because
I would think it's probably, if I had to compare it to something today, it's probably a little bit like Donald Trump is both an exacerbator of the worst parts of the Republican Party and also a symptom of them. It's a feedback loop where they are feeding each other
100%.
and creating a bigger issue.
Yeah.
Anyway, that happened in the late 60s and the 70s, continued on through the 80s where we get Reagan, the war on drugs, all that stuff. The idea of like, oh, welfare queens are gonna come and they're gonna buy lobster with their food stamps or whatever.
Yep.
And we get to the Republican Party of today, which is basically nothing but dog whistles. Dog whistles and tax cuts for the wealthy.
Their platform at this point is "fuck you, Democrat."
Yeah. So it's very interesting how the Southern strategy changed the face of both parties, because you ended up with the Republican Party full of business people who wanted tax cuts for themselves, and those same business people using dog whistles to appeal to poor white people who normally their policies wouldn't appeal to because they don't benefit them, but as long as they wrap it in a casing of, hey, don't you feel good because you're a white person? Isn't it great that you're a white person and don't have to deal with, non-white people? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
And that's basically how the Republican Party's been for decades and decades. And as a result of that, people who aren't that ended up flocking to the Democratic Party, and we had the parties basically switch their not entire platforms, but platforms in terms of racial politics, in terms of racism, race relations, identity politics in general, which even though it wasn't really a thing back then, I would say it still defines a lot of what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So I'm going back and forth a lot. I'm sorry, my volume is probably varying.
It's fine on my end. I don't know.
It's just, I don't know. It's frustrating to me that this has been debunked multiple times. When Dave Rubin claims, okay, Democrats are the party of slavery, no matter how many times it's explained that, like, yeah, people like you and I think most Democrats would be like, yeah, fuck those guys.
Right.
We're not the same as those guys, and we can explain that through our policy positions. It doesn't matter. They just want to be like, look, Lincoln was a Republican, and he founded the Republican Party.
Like, Abraham Lincoln would agree with a modern Republican?
Like, God, I hate these sort of thought experiments.
Well, specifically with Abraham Lincoln, you don't necessarily have. He had a lot of writing, so a modern Republican, he wouldn't like the modern obstructionist of a Republican, and the Democratic Party would probably appeal to him in many regards from a. He was a very decency politics guy.
I don't know. I always hate thought experiments of who would this historical person? We have no idea. Honestly, with some of the things Lincoln said when he was, and part of this could be, he was running for president at this point, so he was trying to, similar to Barack Obama in, prior to 2008, when he's like, I don't think gay marriage should be a thing, even though he probably thought it should be a thing. Lincoln, like, during one of his election things was like, I think abolition should be a thing, but I, like, in no way think, non-white people should be considered equal to us. Like, I don't know if he genuinely believed that, and even though he was an abolitionist, also, was a white supremacist, I don't know. Or if he was just saying that for campaign reasons because it was a popular idea at the time.
I can tell you the answer. So, after he met and started to have a relationship with Frederick Douglass is when it turned around.
Okay.
Frederick Douglass was a huge influence on his politics later on. Now, it's not. By no means am I saying that modern day Abraham Lincoln would be a fucking progressive, but I do. He really painstakingly had this sort of hope boner for unification of the United States, and just based on how the Democratic Party uses that kind of rhetoric, I think he'd be very inclined to vote for Joe Biden or something like that. You know what I mean? And like proudly vote for Joe Biden, which makes him a very lib. But I mean that's the best you can hope for someone from from Abraham Lincoln's time. Anyway, nitty gritty time. There were two major problems in regards to the party switch. I mentioned one of them earlier, the New Deal. Huge, big split. You have Democrats and Republicans split based on a lot of different factors about the New Deal. The New Deal, again, it guaranteed employment, it guaranteed health care, and guaranteed wages. It was a response to terrible times from the Great Depression. It was a response to the First World War and leading into the Second World War. It was incredibly. It's progressive today. Again, like if you just look at the New Deal, like the Bill of Rights of the New Deal, it's pretty fucking progressive for our politics. Now, I don't like the idea of guaranteeing a job because I think we need to get away from the idea of labor. But this was in the 30s, so jobs were still super important. They didn't have automation and stuff, so I don't blame them for the lack of foresight on that. So that's a huge problem. You had a lot of people split. And this wasn't a partisan thing. It wasn't like Republican, Democrat. This was like literally just depending on where you lived, the New Deal may or may not appeal to you, especially if you were upper class. It probably wouldn't appeal to you. So that's the first real split. 30 years later, you have the next real split, and the big split, the one that drove the wedge. And I'll give you some statistics, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, that makes total fucking sense. This is when it happened." The Civil Rights Act was obviously to improve the lives on the books for the black population and other minorities, but mostly the black population was in mind, along with, all the greatest black, advocates of all time, Martin Luther King, etc., Malcolm X, all of them. It was brought to this country through a myriad of things, but John F. Kennedy, the one that got shot, was the one that introduced it to Congress. They ended up passing it eventually after a bunch of shit. There was filibusters from both sides. There were debates all over the place. There was some Republican support, some Democratic support, and it eventually got passed. Here's the split, okay? If you look at by party, okay, just by party, it looks pretty bipartisan. You go with the Democratic Party in the House. It was 152 to 96 Democrats in favor versus against, and the Republican Party 138 to 34. So it just seems like a bipartisan bill. If you are stupid and don't look at stuff, damn it. Just look at stuff. Just look at it and then go, whoa, that's stuff. I see it. If you look at the Senate, similar story. Democratic Party 44 to 23 in favor of versus against. Republican Party 27 to 6. So it looks like the Republicans, although they have fewer members, man, those Republicans sure are progressive. Wow, there's 96 dissenters in the Democratic House for the bill of sorry, I was gonna say the Bill of Rights for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's 96 racist Democrats. Wow, holy shit, we don't see that now. And then you move on, and here's the important part: by region, by party and region. Here we go. The House of Representatives. A Democrat from the South. And the South, in this case, is from the original colonies that allowed slavery areas, plus places like Texas, like Texas, Arizona, and I believe they count New Mexico as well. But other than that, the slave-owning states that were allowed, plus Florida, then Florida, Texas, Arizona, etc. That's a southern person, below the Mason-Dixon line. Okay? Everybody else is northern. Okay. Including California, which is weird. But so Southern Democrats, only 8 Southern Democrats were pro-Civil Rights Act. 83 of them were opposed. Southern Republicans, 0 Southern Republicans were for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now you go to Northern Democrats. These are, again, places that were not slave states of the United States. Northern Democrats, by support of the Civil Rights Act, 145 to 8. Northern Democrats. Northern Republicans, still not great. It's actually less than Democrats now. 136 to 24. Isn't that weird?
So the voting is more in
that's just the House. The Senate's even worse.
This is indicative of the split already beginning to happen in the Republican and Democratic parties, where they're ceasing to be the parties that they were previously and more morphing into what we know as the modern Republican and Democrat parties, where it is, you can see an easy division between North and South in terms of racial politics, and the southern states tend to be red states, northern states tend to be blue states.
And so what happened right after this is Southern Democrats moved to Republicans, Northern Republicans moved to Democrats. That's literally what happened. You can also look at the stat in the Senate statistics for this. Southern Democrats 1-20. Only one Southern Democrat in the Senate approved of the Civil Rights Act. 0 Southern Republicans did. Only one, and then there was only one Southern Republican in Senate, and he opposed it. John Tower of Texas. Shout out John Tower, racist. Of the Northern Democrats, 45-1. Only Robert Byrd of West Virginia was opposed, which is a northern state technically, but it's West Virginia. Northern Republicans, 27-5. Barry Goldwater among them in the dissenters. So, yeah, as you see, the aspects of this, I mean, you had women's rights, you had desegregation, you had implications for the LGBT community after, and then, I mean, just... This is when it really switched. It had been switching for some time. I mean, it started with Abraham Lincoln. There was some switch then. Some people were like, well, I don't like slavery, so I'm also going to agree. Or some people were like, well, I don't think it's reasonable, blah, blah, blah. There's a little bit of switch then. Then you get to the New Deal, bigger switch. This was the pin, the Civil Rights Act. And guess who goes to the Republican Party? The people that oppose the Civil Rights Act. This is like, he said in his thing, like, all the Democrats didn't like the Civil Rights Act. If you just look at it from the northern to south, overwhelmingly people from non-slave states were like, yeah, don't do that. That's bad. We like black. We don't like black people necessarily. I mean, they're still white, but they're like, we don't want them to be unequal in the law. At least that's the bare minimum. Some people were actually allies, of course,
sure.
But
they were 60s progressive, not 2020s progressive.
Right. It's just fucking amazing to me. Wow. So that's the myth. That's the myth all the time. That's pretty much the only thing you need to know is where did these people vote? And if you want to know, I mean, you can look it up on Wikipedia if you want. You can look it up in any other source. I mean, there's tons of sources for this. You can read books about it. I mean, you can read articles about it. If you just look at it from a geographical standpoint with the party split along with it, I mean, it's so fucking obvious what happened. So obvious. So your party affiliation is irrelevant. It just so happens that Republicans do the Southern strategy. And where are all the racists at? The South. Why are they racist? That's where slavery happened. It's part of their culture. Why are we surprised? Absolutely ridiculous that this is a surprising thing that you have to bring up and talk about because Dave Rubin doesn't know how to read.
I'm not surprised, but,
That's the end. Tirades! We did it!
Yeah.
Well, anything we have to add to that?
I don't think so. I think we get it. It's just... This has been debunked so many times already, and it's just frustrating time and time again having to go over this. And they know. Dave Rubin knows. Dave Rubin is, I think, educated enough to know about this. He's just being disingenuous. It's a bad faith argument completely.
I would love to know if you brought these statistics up, how he would reconcile that with what he said.
Yeah.
I don't think he would. I think he'd go, they're still Democrats. Okay. All right. Then there's nothing to talk about. Like, if you can't understand, like I want to blame racists for being racist, but at the same time, it's like, what do you expect? Like, they're in the South. It's where it was most prevalent. It's really hard to break out of that mindset when it's constantly reinforced. It's just psychological. It's the same thing as it's genuinely not different from any other thing we indoctrinate people into. Fucking football fandom, your religion, pride in your particular state or country, whatever you got going on. Like, it's hard to break the habits of those social, like, chains. It's really hard to do so. And you see anytime someone, especially in the South, anytime someone goes against the populist sort of idea of like racism, slavery, etc., fucking heterosexuality, two genders, etc., like those people are ostracized by the South and those southern states, and they either move away or have not a very happy time or succumb to it. It's like it's a problem, but the only way to fix that problem is to, first of all, make it politically inexpedient to be racist. That's super ideal. Because if it's politically inexpedient to be racist, they don't have anyone to vote for, and they become naturally disenfranchised, which isn't necessarily what I want as far as, but it's, they're going to stop legislating based on things that those people agree with, which is good, which in turn, over the generations, causes the severity of those beliefs to lessen, because you're not being encouraged by the powers that be, which is a good thing. And so, like, you could, it's the opposite of the phenomenon of Donald Trump, really. And it's like he exacerbated the problem, because he was like, whether he knowingly did so or not, I believe he definitely did so near the end here with the Proud Boys thing, stand by, stand down. Like, those people latched onto that kind of stuff, and they do so, and it's sad. I don't know why there's people like Dave Rubin that think it's helpful to lie about it. I don't know what, like, to feel right, even though in the face of like abject incorrectness, I don't.
It's because they recognize that they don't have moral high ground to stand on in regard to modern Republican policies, because they're bad, as it turns out. Telling people that if they have cancer, they should go into debt or die is bad.
Really?
And they recognize that, so they have to hold on to this like idea. And it's funny because it's actually almost a like identity politics thing, which they claim to not like. It's like, it's
yeah.
Well, we're the Republicans, though. Republicans are the ones who helped end slavery, even though that was 100-something years ago.
And then they have Candace Owens go and tell you that black people are fine.
So it's interesting. It would be like comparing, I don't know, what's the oldest football team in America?
I don't know, Chicago Bears. I don't know.
Whatever. It would be like comparing, like, let's say you're like a very losing team today in sports.
Lions, nice.
But you used to, like, 100 years ago. I don't know how old football is.
No, not the Lions then. Yes, yeah. No, they actually did win a championship in the 50s, so let's say the Lions.
It'd be like saying, but even on a longer time scale than that, because the 50s are obviously much more recent than the 1870s.
Go to baseball. Baseball's much older than that. Say the for a long time, the Red Sox, there was the curse of the Bambino after, in 1918, they traded Babe Ruth to the Yankees. There was that curse of the Bambino, and so for like 100 years, they didn't win anything. It's like saying the Red Sox are good because they were good in the 1900s.
Yes.
Right.
Even though they're
good now.
None of the same people are a part of it. I imagine the way they go about playing the game is entirely different. The rules are different.
Yeah.
It's like that. That's what Dave Rubin is doing here.
Look at you trying a sports. You tried. I appreciate you. It's bad. We could talk about this forever. I've talked to Republicans before about this, or other conservatives or shitlords, and like sometimes you can get through to them, but other times they're just like, but the Democrats did the slavery, and it's like you just can't get it. It's like, yes, I know, they don't. Do you think again? Just. If you had a racist person, like I don't like the black people, and I don't think you should get married to one. Who is that person voting for?
Yeah, Republicans.
Of course. This is the only person even remotely close to putting forward a resegregation bill, right? Like, just wild. Anyway. That's the end of that, unless you have anything else to do. He is very stupid. What's next, really?
What's next is... Hold on, we're done with that.
I'm so scared. I'm so scared of what comes next. It's got to get worse.
The next section is never surrender to the mob. And then the section after that is stop hating straight white men, America, and Western values. Oh no, one of the
Oh.
sections is titled "Look Backward, Not Forward." Oh no, Asian
No.
privilege is a chapter.
Which one?
Asian privilege.
Asian privilege.
And then there's one that says "Stop being racist and sexist to straight white men."
Can we stop? Can we cease? Cease, Dave Rubin.
Oh god, he has a section called "Stop being an expert on everything." The irony.
Why are you writing this book then, Dave?
Admit that we need religious stories. Oh no.
Oh, that's Jordan Peterson as fuck. There's 0% chance he doesn't mention Jordan Peterson in that.
Yeah.
Skim it real quick. Tell me if Jordan Peterson's in it. You know he is. Control F.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson. It's happening. 0% chance he's not in that. Called it.
1, 2, 3, 5 paragraphs in.
I did it. All right, so that's the end of this. It's just a hellscape. If you live in Georgia, make sure that you do stuff to help not have the Republicans win. That'd be nice. Early polling looks pretty good again, mostly because the Republicans keep going outside, coughing on each other and dying, I think. Also wear a mask when you go to vote. Check it out. And if you do that, we might be able to pass some reasonable legislation. Not going to be world-shattering or anything, but going to be some good stuff. I'd like the next 2 years to be able to undo some of the bad stuff and move towards some of the good stuff. We're not going to be able to do the good stuff, really, but it's going to take more progressives over time. Like you and me. We're going to run for president soon. That's fun.
Oh god, do I have to?
No, you don't. Someone the other day, I think you were in the chat. Someone was like, Jake and Hannah for president, vice president. I was like, I respect and appreciate Hannah way too much to give her that job. She needs to go
Be
retire.
in charge of the fucking Senate.
No, go enjoy. You can live in the White House or something. You can be around. But you don't have to. I'm not going to give you an important job.
Secretary of Transportation, and then I want to fuck over Elon Musk, okay? And then I'll do that for.
That's fine.
I'll do that for 2 years.
I'll
do that for 2 years, and then I'll get a cushy lobbying job
Do you want to lobby? I don't think you do. I
want the money to be a consultant for a lobbying firm.
I'm the president. We'll figure it out. You can just go be happy. You don't need to. You don't need to. Do you see what the presidency does to people's bodies? Like,
I don't think
it just makes them husks.
No, see, I'm already at the bottom.
You're not.
I've hit rock bottom.
You're looking
so there's
good
nowhere
today.
for me to go but up.
No, I think there needs to be no. You don't be a dried out corn husk person. Anyway, I also don't want to be president, but I want to be dictator. That's really what I want.
Well, if Donald Trump gets his way, then we can just slip right in.
Hell yeah.
We've learned he's tried to do a coup very unsuccessfully, so all we have to do is learn lessons from it and then correctly.
Yeah, I'll just do the Julius Caesar shit.
Okay. I'll cross the Rubicon with you.
I'll walk over a river.
Yeah.
And then people will be like, wow, that's pretty good river skills. And then I'm pretty sure it was the river skills that
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Anyway. I actually believe that's the most influential thing of all time. Not the crossing of the Rubicon, the emperorship. The most influential for Western civilization. The most influential.
I would argue the crucifixion of the historical figure of Jesus Christ is up there.
No, because it came first, and you wouldn't have the proliferation of Jesus Christ without Roman emperors. Boom! You don't have Roman emperors without Julius Caesar. I win.
Okay, then by that metric, then I can go back and say the first person to figure out how to light a fire is more influential because then Rome would never have existed. So,
well, no, but I mean, like, that's too broad. That's a very specific system that was set in place by a person.
What do you mean it's broad? Someone made fucking fire. That's a specific incident.
Yeah, but he explicitly exacerbated the religion.
The advent of agriculture. the fall of Samaria, which then sent people off to go and start other civilizations.
There wasn't really a fall of Samaria. There was a fall of the Harappan Empire, though. That was interesting.
Ooh.
India.
Now I'm already off doing other stuff. Look at this. Look at this mini.
I can't. We got to stop the show first. I'll look at the mini in a second. Hey,
Okay.
Go do the stuff, the show stuff. Go do it. We're going to have more stuff. We might take a couple days off for Christmas and stuff, so there might not be as many things. I don't know what's going on because we have things going on. But after Christmas,
I'll probably be streaming on Christmas if you want, because Baja's going to be busy doing something else.
I'll be streaming around. I don't think I'm streaming on Christmas. I'm streaming around Christmas, and then we're going to do Friendsmas after that sometime. But we're also going to do a PO unboxing soon.
I got a ton of packages today from the box. So
I think I need something from there. Oh, one of them is my Mimsy Moon.
Oh, sure. I can find. Do you know who sent it? If you do, let me know.
Singing Reaper, but I don't know what the name is on it. So, Mimsy Moon said I'm dead to her.
Did you see? Oh my God. John Doyle.
I'm doing it today.
Is doing Christmas sweaters with his face on them, and I want one so badly, but he only made 12.
You mean 12?
Someone needs to, because they're not like print sweaters. He actually had someone do like
knit.
Yeah, and I guess they were really expensive to make, and I want one so bad. I'm not gonna say that online, even as a joke. I was gonna say something, but I'm not gonna. I need that sweater though. I want to wear. I don't want to support
John Doyle at all. So, you know what we should do? Why don't we just make our own?
I guess we could. It'll probably be expensive though.
It's not really that bad. It's like $20 to make a John Doyle face shirt. Did I tell you my idea for stream in the new year?
No.
Good.
Okay.
I have some plans. Hey, come watch us stream. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, this video is over, so go enjoy another video.
Description. Go click them.
H Bomber Guy just did a thing about New Vegas if you want to go watch that.
I did. I saw that. I'm excited. I like his long form stuff on video games.
There you go. Friend of the show. That's true.
You say that about everyone.
He's a friend. We follow each other on the Twitter and we talk a little bit.
Acquaintance of Jake.
He's come on stream. Okay, fine. My best friend in the world. Harris Bomber Guy. That's not true. We are acquaintances. Anyway, I love your faces.